Vernon, would you do our invocation?
Lord, we thank you for being in such a free country that we are able to have a controlled and free-speaking government. We thank you for tonight. We pray that you would guide our steps, that you would guide our decision-making, that you would guide our words, and for us to have a nice, good conversation this evening, and that you would help us and lead us in the best way to care and look after our roads in this community. We thank you for all of our many blessings. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make a motion that the agenda be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the only purpose that we have here tonight is to talk about roads and bridges, what our situation is, what needs to be done, and how we can get it done. I would like to give you just a bit of a background. I know you're all familiar with the state of the roads, but I would like to go into a little greater detail with some of the things that we're looking at with you. First of all, we have 501 miles of road in Gilmer County. Of that, just under 200 miles is unpaved gravel roads. Now, the gravel roads are what give us the most problems. And what happens with those is, if you can imagine, and you'd have to imagine it, but if you can imagine a situation where all the gravel roads are looking good right now. We have these torrential rainfalls in Gilmer County. We get one of those and every gravel road we've got has got ruts, holes, and worse. When I come in the next day after a big rainfall, I've got a stack of come fix my road messages. And we try to do that. We have got 2 motor graders that we can use to grade these roads and gravel. 2 teams that work, and they work pretty much full-time, going out and grading, graveling roads. The plan was that we would have 1 team start at each end of the county, and as they finish one road, they just go to the next and the next and go around like that. All right. The reality is they'll go out wherever it is they're supposed to be working, and they'll get a call from me saying, okay, go up on such and such road. We've got a complaint up there that is washing out. And they never really get to go into their little schedule. You know, as soon as they finish one road, I'll have another one for them to go to. It's not a very effective way to do things. And the worst part of it is we generally can't get around to all of the couple of 100 miles of gravel roads before we get another rain. All the roads we just fixed are washed out again. We try to sort of accommodate that by getting to the roads that we didn't get to the first time on the second go around first, giving them a priority. But it doesn't work out very well. We have pipes in those roads that are intended to carry the water, and they get stopped up. Sometimes the ditches get filled up. So basically what happens is that portion of the road department that's responsible for the grading and graving is just overwhelmed. They've always got somewhere to go next, but they've got a list after that, and that list never gets any shorter. It usually takes on average about a day to grab and gravel a road. Shorter ones a little less, longer ones a little more, but on average about a day. So the only real solution I see to that is to pave some of these roads. Now, we've got a very few people here in Gilmer County that have told me that they don't want their road paved. They're rare. For the most part, if you live on a gravel road, you want it paved. And that is the solution to the big problem, because we're never going to get a handle on trying to grade and gravel these dirt roads after heavy rain and be able to keep them all in good shape, at least not while we've got about 200 miles of them. Now, if we could get that down to maybe 20, 25 miles, I don't know how many people doesn't want their road paved, but I doubt it's be any more than that. You know, we can manage that pretty well with what we've got. So that brings us to the paved roads. Now, the paved roads don't require as much maintenance as the gravel roads do. They can withstand pretty heavy rain without washing away. The problem with the paved roads is potholes, and we got some potholes in Gilmer County. We have one pothole patcher and a person running it, and he full-time goes around patching potholes. And he's got the same situation that the people on the motor grader and the gravel roads have. And that as soon as he goes through one road and gets all the potholes patched, he's got a list of the next ones to go to, and that list never gets shorter. Ideally, if we had more paved roads though, and we could have more pothole patchers, so to speak, a patched pothole lasts an awful lot longer than a graded gravel road does. So we would be in much better shape, and that's what I see as our ultimate goal for the future, is just to get these roads paved. We need to buy additional equipment for that, but I'll get into that in a minute. Right now, on average, it costs about $40,000 to $50,000 per mile to pave a road with tar and chip paving. If you want asphalt paving, that's closer to about $90,000 a mile. So it's going to be a pretty expensive endeavor to try to pave these roads. When we do pave the roads, the next thing we have to do is stripe them, and I know you're all familiar with problems that we've got with striping. We've just paved 10 or 12 miles of road. We had to pave the 2018 paving and the 2019 paving, all was done in this past summer because it was just too wet in 18 for us to be able to pave anything. We've got a lot of freshly paved roads now, and of course those roads have no stripes on them. We've gone to the people that we normally use to stripe roads, and we're not getting any results from that. We do not stripe our own roads. We don't have the equipment for it. We don't have the expertise for it. So we go to third parties. Right now, we're trying to find somebody to stripe the roads that have just been paved. We've gone to everybody that we know of that does that, and we've gotten the same response from everybody. We can't come, we can't help you. They basically got all the business they can handle, or all they want, I guess. So we're still trying to find somebody that's willing to come out and stripe the roads. Normally the problem is we don't have enough money to do something. We've got money set back to stripe these roads. We set $30,000 back just for the roads that have been recently repaved. So we've got the money, we just can't find anybody that'll come do it. In the 2020 budget, we've got 190-something thousand, I think it's 195 or 93 set back for striping roads. So we're trying to allocate the funds to do that, if we could just find somebody that would come out and take that job. And we're having a real serious problem with that right now. And I've been talking about paving roads, striping roads that have just been recently paved. We've got roads all over the county where the striping is faded and tough to see, and I get emails and I get calls on it every day. And say the same thing, you know, we're trying our best and we'll do it when we can. Not typically a very well-received response, but we are doing all that we can. What I would like to see in that regard would be, I would like to see us obtain our own equipment, train somebody, get the expertise, and start striping these roads in-house. Now, I don't want to do that because I don't like going to a third party. I'm pretty much in favor of going to a third party for something whenever we can. But when you have this much problem trying to find somebody that'll do what you need to have done, sometimes it's better just to be able to do it yourself. As with everything else, the startup cost for that is steep. Once you get past the paving and the gravel roads and the potholes and so forth, then we come to the mowing. We have to mow all 500 miles of those roads. We only patch the potholes on the paved roads, and we only grade and gravel the dirt roads, but we got to mow all 500 miles of them. Right now, we've got 2 full-time mowing teams that during the growing season, their job is just to go around and mow the roads. But if you do the math, 500 miles, 2 teams, what you get is what you've all seen. You know, you may get your road mowed today, and maybe in 18 months you'll see them back out there to mow it again. And unfortunately, that's the mathematics of it. With 500 miles of road, if we want to keep these roads mowed properly, we need to have 5 or 6 teams out doing this. Unfortunately, those mowers are about $200,000 a piece. And of course, then you need a follow-up truck and the people that are in the truck and on the mower. So it's something that's out of our reach right now. We know what needs to be done. We just can't do it. We've also tried to outsource that to find a third party that we can just contract with and say, okay, y'all come keep all of our roads mowed. Have not been able to find anybody to do that. Surprisingly, it's surprisingly difficult to find anybody that's even in that business. I had a great deal of difficulty. Google didn't turn up anything around here for anybody that does that. So we basically struck out trying to outsource that to a third party, and we're still going around trying to do it ourselves. I don't mind doing some ourselves when we have the equipment, the manpower, and the expertise to do it, but clearly we don't when it comes to mowing. We have some miscellaneous things. We're subject to an occasional snowfall here in Gilmer County in the winter, some ice, and we have to be able to spread salt and so forth to clear those roads. One of the things that really surprised me when I first took office is that we generally get $10,000 or $15,000 worth of salt before the season starts and have it in our little salt pile there ready to go. The only cover that we had for that was a tarp, and it's salt and it melts or it dissolves, whatever you want to call it. We get a good heavy rain, that tarp wouldn't protect that salt under it. It wasn't a tight enough fit. We were losing a lot of salt that way. So we finally built a salt shed. Now when it rains, the salt doesn't get wet and all dissolve away. We had a similar situation with our road equipment. Virtually everything we had 5 years ago was junk. It was just old, wore out, rusted. The rusty part I found when I was tasked with going out to take some pictures of junk equipment that we needed to get rid of. We had junk cars over there at the road department and all kinds of old junk equipment, and we decided we needed to dispose of all that. My job was to go out and take pictures of it, bring it back to a board meeting. So I took the pictures of all the junk I saw and brought it back and started showing the pictures to the other commissioners, and Jim Smith jumped up, got all excited and said, no, we use that. That's our pothole patcher, or that's our salt spreader. All the stuff that I went out and took pictures of that I thought had to be junk was what they were using on a day-by-day basis. We've made a lot of improvements in that since then, but there's still a long way to go with that. But one of the things we did do though was we built a shed for the equipment because it was all just standing out in the open for the sun and rain. And so now when we are able to replace some of that, it's all housed under an equipment shelter so that it will not deteriorate so quickly. If we want to start doing some of these things ourselves, we need new dump trucks. We need at least one new motor grader, unless we have a plan that we can get all these roads paved. Then you don't want to spend the money on the motor grader, you want to spend the money on the pothole patcher. But either way, you're spending some money. We need 6 to 8 new pickup trucks. Keep in mind, when I say new, in regard to any piece of equipment, I mean new to us. I don't mean brand new off the showroom, but something that's not 20 years old. We need, and again, the machinery, what I like to have for striping the roads. We have supplies that we also have to buy that include several different sizes of rock, the salt that we use in the winter, propane, concrete, asphalt, any number of other things that just on a day-by-day basis that we have to have. So we've tried to fund all this the best we can. When I first took office, I could be heard to say many times, we're broke. We can't do that, we're broke. We're not broke anymore, and I'm really proud of that. We're in a good financial position. But what we have, and then we have a reserve set back that we can handle some emergencies and so forth. If we were to take that reserve and say we're going to start building roads with all this, we might could pave 10, 15 miles of road and then we'd be out of money and we'd be broke again. So we can't do that. I've also heard people say, take it away from the fire department, public safety, parks and rec, and put it over into roads. The only ones that we could feasibly take enough to do anything from would be the big ticket departments, the fire department, sheriff, those sort of things. If we take the money from them, I know they're very large budgets, but they're as bare bones as we can possibly make them. And if you talk to the sheriff or the fire chief, they'll tell you that it's more bare bones than they can stand. If we were to decide to take some funding away from those folks, if you take anything less than $1 million away from them, you're not going to be able to tell any difference. Because when you're talking about roads, a piece of road machinery is not a $30,000 item, it's a $200,000 item. Paving a mile of road is, $50,000 to $100,000. So what happens is you wind up crippling, and I mean crippling your other departments for just a little bump in the roads that very few people will even be able to notice. It's not a viable way to fund getting our roads where they need to be. Right now, we spend roughly $1 million a year on paving, repaving, and so forth. The biggest part of that comes from a grant that we get from the state each year, local maintenance and improvement grant. Last year it was in the high 600,000s. For 20, it'll be in the low 700,000s. And we have to put a 30% match with that. So if you get a $700,000 grant and you put a 30% match to it, you're $910,000 or so forth. You're pushing $1 million. And that's about what we spend every year on our paving and repaving. The grading and graveling comes from our capital budget, whatever capital money we have left over after we pay our bond debt. About 2 years ago, there was an extra $500,000 that was put on the bond millage. It went from 1 mil to 1.5 mil. And that's the money that we use to fund the gravel roads and so forth. In addition to any other piece of capital equipment that we have to buy, for instance, We're gonna have to get new ambulances this year, that'll come from that money. We are looking to start cutting back on that. It was never intended to be a permanent extra half mil. We have projected in our 2020 budget that that will go down to $1.25 rather than $1.5. With the idea that in the 2021 budget, it will go down, back down to $1 and the half mil will be gone. But so will a lot of our funding that we use for the capital equipment that we have. If we continue the way we are, at about $1 million a year in terms of the paving the roads and so forth, we can't increase that amount for the next 13 years. For the next 13 years, we're going to be paying $4 million a year and a little over for our bond debt service. So for the next 13 years, we can do about $1 million a year. After that, when the bonds are paid for, we can raise that to probably $2.5 million a year, maybe even $3 million. And then we can start seeing some improvement, I think. So right now we have 3 options. I usually figure in about 2.5% inflation because over time, you never get anything for what you could 10 years ago. At a 2.5% of inflation, $1 million a year currently. Our 3 options are this. We can raise the millage rate. That is not an option. I mean, that's one of the 3 things we could do. I don't consider that to be an option. We can continue as we are. And for the next 13 years, things will stay just as they are right now. They won't get any worse, but they won't necessarily get any better. After that 13 years, we can start making a little bit more progress. In that scenario, and these are just figures off the top of my head, I'm trying to work them out a little more, with a little more detail right now, but at that point, in that scenario, we're looking at about 30, 35 years to get to a point where all these roads are where we'd like for them to be. Total cost, $25 million to $30 million, depending on what that inflation actually does turn out to be. So that's option number 2. We can just stay with what we're doing right now. And option number 3, I'm glad you're all sitting down, is a local T-SPLOST. Now, several years ago, we were faced with a T-SPLOST that we had no choice but to vote on, but it was a regional T-SPLOST. I opposed it with everything I had, primarily because it was regional. The money that came into Gilmer County, in my opinion, would have gone down to Cartersville, Carrollton, where they had a big project going on at that time, because those were all the members of the region that we were in. I didn't think it would benefit Gilmer County. I thought that Gilmer County's portion of that money would have been used to benefit the larger counties. So I was opposed to it myself, and apparently a lot of other people. It did not pass. And it didn't pass in most of Georgia. I think only 2 of the regions passed. Part of that was by not passing that, the matching funds that we have to provide now for all these the grants that we get, the local maintenance grants that we get every year, increased from 10% to 30%. So it was kind of a situation of, either pass this or we're going to triple your matching funds. And that's what happened. If that was presented to me today, I would be as adamantly opposed to it as I was a few years back. Regional does not work for us. Because it was a pretty dramatic failure all across the state, the legislature, they looked at that and they recognized it. And I think they figured out pretty quickly what the problem was. So they created a path where a county could decide that they were going to have a local T-SPLOST. Now, the local T-SPLOST is just like what it sounds. It'll increase the sales tax by 1%. The stipulation for that is that it must be used for nothing but transportation. That's it. You can buy equipment with it, but it better be road equipment. You can pave roads with it, you can maintain roads with it. You can even pay salaries for your road crew with it, although that's a path we don't want to go down. Because that T-Splosh will go away at some point, those salaries will still be there. You don't want to do that. If we do that, best estimate is that it would bring in about $4 million a year. It would be a 5-year T-Splosh. Now, you have the option of renewing it after 5 years. My pledge is that I will never ask for a renewal if we do it one time. If we achieve the anticipated $4 million a year over 5 years, that's $20 million over 5 years. When you're looking at it over 5 years instead of 25 years, the amount you actually need to make a difference goes way down. Kind of like financing a house for 5 years versus 25. That'll let us do what we need to do. I have tried to come up with any alternative that I can think of that would let us get these roads in good shape, keep them in good shape, without having to resort to something like a local T-Splosh. I haven't been able to come up with anything. So what I wanted to do in this meeting tonight and then the one that we'll have Saturday, which will be the same sort of thing, I just wanted to be able to have 2 meetings at different times so that people who couldn't attend this one could come to the other one. What I wanted to do with this was just to kind of lay this out for y'all and say, here's what I've come up with. There may very well be something that I'm overlooking, and certainly I would welcome any ideas that would let us do this, such that we would not just stand still and stay where we are, but yet not necessarily do a T-Splosh. One thing that I want to mention about the T-Splosh, that's an extra 1% on your sales tax. For the most part, if you're going out to a restaurant, you're not necessarily going to be real upset that there's an extra 1% on a, I don't know, say a $30 charge on there. Where people get really upset is when they go out to buy a new car. That 1% on the new car, yeah, that adds up. Fortunately, or unfortunately as the case may be, several years ago, the state of Georgia did away with the sales tax on new cars. Now, we still pay what we all think of as sales tax, but it's not actually a sales tax. It's TAVT tax, transportation value, I don't know. I'm sorry. Transportation ad valorem tax, yes. It is a substitute for the sales tax that we used to pay. Before, the amount you would pay would be dependent on the sales tax rate in the county you lived in. Now it's standard all across all 159 counties in the state. The state sets it, not the counties. And if your sales tax increases, this tax does not. So if we have an extra 1% on our sales tax and you go to buy a new car or truck, it's not going to cost you more just because we don't use sales tax as a figure for that anymore. So that was a really big problem that I foresaw with this. It turns out because of the TAVT tax that particular portion of it won't be a problem. At this point, what I would like to do is to hear from y'all, hear about your roads, hear what you feel like should be done, and ideally how you feel like we should be able to do it. And just throw it open to y'all. I mean, you're aware of the problem that we have. And I'm very much aware of it, and more so every telephone call. But this is something we're all in together, and we need to try to figure out how to work this thing out. So with that, anybody that would like to comment, I know we've got some here that want to make some comments. Yes, ma'am. If you would, though, please come up here so that we can record what you're saying for
Certainly.
later reference and state your name.
Hi, my name is Mary Faye Kesko. I have a home on Yukon Alley, which is one of Gilmer County's dirt roads, but it is not a county-maintained road. In fact, it is not maintained by anyone. And I'm really interested in hearing your plan for those types of roads in Gilmer County. Also, you mentioned that there's 500 miles of road in Gilmer County.
Right.
200 miles of gravel roads.
Just a tad under, yes.
How many miles of gravel roads like mine are in Gilmer County that are in desperate need of the county taking over?
I cannot give you that figure, I don't know. The only reason I know the other figures is because I know that that's what we maintain.
Right.
As for what is outside the realm of what we maintain, I'm sure it's substantial, but I couldn't give you an actual figure of how many miles.
Is there, with this option 3 that you're proposing to the community to take over the existing maintained roads, paved and gravel, is there a plan for roads such as mine?
The plan, if we were to go to that, let me kind of back up on this. I get, on average, at least one call a week from people who are wanting us to take their road into the county system. A county road, and we just reference them as private roads. It doesn't mean necessarily that they're not public transport roads. When the county talks about a private road, we just mean one that we don't maintain. Those roads are owned by the property owners on each side of the road, and typically the property goes to the center line of the road. Now, what is supposed to happen is those property owners are responsible for maintaining the road. Ideally, and believe me, I understand the problems with this, but ideally, all the property owners get together to figure out what needs to be done, what it'll cost, divvy it up, pay their share, and it gets done. That never happens.
No, it doesn't.
There's always a few that don't want to participate, some that can't. I typically tell folks when I get those calls that, how very sorry I am, but we can't maintain the roads we've got now properly. This is something that we've all, I think, probably agree on. So I can't bring more roads into the system when I can't maintain what we've got. One of the things that would happen with the T-Splosh is it would give us the option for bringing some of these roads in. It would be something we would have to do very carefully, and it would be something that, for the most part, we would have to do later on in the process after we've really gotten the ones that we're responsible for right now in really good shape. I had one call, it's been about 2 months ago now, telling me that the road was in just horrible shape. Cars could barely get through it. There were people with medical problems on the road, and they needed help. It was a private road. And I said the thing I always have to say, I can't bring it into the system. Before I could hang up, I was asked to promise that I would at least come look at the road, and I made that promise. I drove out to the road, turned onto it. Usually, when somebody tells me their road is impassable, there's a certain level of fudging going on there. And I come out to some of these roads and I think, well, yeah, it's in pretty bad shape, but it's not anywhere near what it was described. This road was. It was one of the worst roads. It's the second worst road I've seen in Gilmer County ever. And you drive down that road and you look left and right and you just know that the people there can't pay the money to maintain that road. I've never wanted to bring a road into the system so bad in my life, but I couldn't do it. What I would hope if we go with the T-Splosh solution and we actually have funding that we can start paving roads and getting these roads straightened out, is that at some point, we can start bringing some select roads into the county system. It would be based, I think, on need. And as I say, it would need to be toward the further end of the 5-year mark that we'd be talking about, when the other roads are up to standard. But yeah, I would like to bring some roads in. I can't say that we can bring all the roads in that are not currently in the system. I just wish that I had some flexibility, and right now we don't. There's any number of times when I have to say no when people ask to bring a road into the system. But there's been times when I really would wish I could say yes instead of no, but I have to say no. Does that answer your question?
It does answer. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because a few years back, one of our fire trucks were responding to a fire on our road, and it got stuck, and it could not make it to that without additional help and assistance. So it has, especially when we have our torrential rains, it becomes impassable. And other roads in the same area that were private but not, were taken in and have since been paved. This is the only remaining road.
How long ago was that?
It was about the time the fire truck got stuck. The road right next to us got paved. And our road remains a mess. So,
The only thing I can say is there's nothing I would like more than to be able to bring a lot of these roads into the system. The absolute only prospect that I can see at this point for doing that would be if we do have something like the T-Splosh. Without that, I'm still in the situation where I can't even make people happy with what we've got now.
understood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, man.
Hi, Charlie. My name is Walt Sansont, and I live off Redwood Lane, way on the west side of the county. And my question is similar to hers, because I think there was a distinction that you brought up that you may not, don't want to say you don't understand, but wasn't clear. There are roads that are county-owned roads that are not maintained by the county. Redwood Lane is one of those. Our property line goes to the end of Redwood Lane and on both sides, and the road is county and it is not maintained. So there are similar roads in the county like that. I had Jim Smith come out and look at it, actually, and he agreed.
Well, you're right. I didn't understand that. I am surprised to learn that there are county-owned roads.
Yes.
They're not county-maintained roads. Is that, can we do that?
It would sound to me like what has occurred is that the county obtained ownership in the past at some point in time, and essentially probably neglected to maintain the road, and the citizens in that vicinity or neighborhoods took over the responsibility of maintenance.
We have no homeowners agreement or anything like that, so.
Who's maintaining it?
Nobody.
Yeah, that's the problem with most of them.
Right, and so, you know, it's a county road, and I already pay taxes, so I'd expect that the county should at least do something on it.
But if it's in fact a county road, there's an inventory of the roads that are in the county road system.
It is not in that inventory. I've checked that inventory, but the road is not owned, it is owned by the county because it's not owned by the homeowners on either side of the road.
Now necessarily it doesn't, if there's not an established ownership, it doesn't necessarily fall back to the county. It's just something that we probably have to look at.
Which road is that?
Redwood Lane, and there's Redwood Lane and Redwood Drive. They're both the same issues. I'm sure there's other roads like that in the county as well, but I can those are definitely two.
I will, I'll check to see
Thank you.
what we're showing status on that.
Because I'd be happy to work on it, but I'm already paying taxes, so I don't.
Well, now, I want to address that though, because just about 10 out of 10 calls that I get on roads, the comment that's made is, I pay my taxes. And, you know, and it's true, can't dispute that at all. But what people have to realize is, when you pay your taxes, you're not necessarily paying it just for your road.
Got it, I understand that.
You know.
But, not to get in an argument, but if you go, the further west you go in the county, the less county access to the things that the county provides we have.
And I wouldn't even argue that point. I'd have to check into it, but I wouldn't argue the point. I only argue the point that taxes are for more than your road.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
My name is Bill Cripps. I'm here with a contingency for our road. We live on Drina Drive in Carter's Lake Estates.
How do you spell that?
Pardon?
How do you spell it?
D-R-E-N-A Drive. Now, Drina Drive is a private road, I think. I just want to present to you a unique situation that we have. Not necessarily expect anything, but let's try this. At the end of Drina Drive, there is a cell tower. Drina Drive ends, and then there's a dirt road goes up the mountain to the cell tower. That cell tower was built by a huge contingency of 18-wheelers, dump trucks, you name it, heavy equipment. That heavy equipment has destroyed Drina Drive. We've got not only potholes, we've got areas where there's nothing anymore. It's extremely bouncy, if you will, and it's actually dangerous. I have talked to a gentleman in the, I'm not positive of the department, it's in the old bank building down here, who said, well, we gave permission for the tower people to use the road. And I asked him to show me. And he said, well, we have it. Someone from your road gave permission for that to be used. He could not produce that permission. His statement was, well, we don't have it anymore. It's so old that we just don't have that anymore. Goes back, I think he said, to the year 2000. And he said, you guys are responsible for your road. It doesn't matter that it was destroyed by all these trucks. You guys are responsible because it's a private road. Now, Georgia Power also goes back and forth to that tower. So there's the situation for your consideration. I don't know what else to say. I just need to get that out. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name's Van Banky, and I live way up on Big Creek Road, where it turns to dirt. There's about 2.6 miles of Big Creek Road that remains dirt and gravel. And I bear witness to the fact that a T-Splosh works in Fannin County because I live near the line up there. They've just finished tar and graveling all the way from Aska Road down to the Fannin line. And it's quite irritating to come, for visitors to come driving down this nice tar and gravel road, and then as soon as you get into Gilmer, it's boom, 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 boom. So I'm here to request that y'all tar and gravel Big Creek Road. According to your math, it'll cost $130,000. And if a T-Splosh is the only way to get it done, I would just be thrilled to have a T-Splosh. I'll put up a neon sign in my yard supporting a T-Splosh. There's going to be an engineering problem because, as y'all probably know, there's a culvert on Big Creek Road that always gets overwhelmed every time there's a rain. And it makes the road impassable. And for the last 16 years that I've had my property, y'all come out and fix it pretty quickly. But it probably would be better served by a bridge. But it's possible that just putting the tar and gravel road over that culvert, it might be okay. It might not be overwhelmed as bad.
Right.
But I speak for my neighbors up there. We would all support a splosh to get the job done. There's a lot of, as you may know, there's a lot of natural springs that drain onto Big Creek Road.
And other roads as well, yeah.
And it causes, when it's real cold, and it snows or ices or something like that, it creates the most horrible mess. So probably the paving of the tar and gravel would definitely help that. We sure would appreciate it.
Thank you.
Quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is John Ardrey, and I guess I have just a couple of concerns.
Yes, sir.
One is I live in the Mountain Town area, Maple Rest Lane, if you're familiar with that, and it's kind of a personal issue because the Maple Rest doesn't shed the water properly and it ends up coming down my driveway. Mr. Holloway's been kind enough to come look at it. Jim Smith's been there 3 or 4 times. The last time I called him, what happens is my whole driveway gets washed out and you can't even make it to my house. The last time I talked to Jim, he said, well, it's not a critical issue. I told my wife it's not a critical issue. She can't make it to her house. So the deal is now, he said the road grader will come out and fix it, but because it's not critical, there's no urgency to have it done. It just, you know, how many rains we've had, it's been out of control. And I'm talking 10 to 12, 13-inch ruts in my driveway, which can't make them home. So,
What is your street address there, if you don't mind?
730.
730?
730 Maple Rest. And the other question I had, I'd appreciate any help I get on that. The other question I had is Mountain Town Road was just repaved. And I could say it's worse now than it was before.
One of the things that we've sort of learned this year, and we can fix it going forward. I'm not quite sure how we're going to deal with it for what we've got. We can do tar and chip paving like no other county in the state of Georgia. I mean, we are good at tar and chip paving. We are not particularly good at asphalt paving. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is the asphalt paving equipment that we have is ancient and we're not able to keep it working properly. The other is we don't have, our folks here in the county don't have the experience that we need to do the asphalt paving. So I have already made a determination that going forward, we're going to try to have third parties come in and do the asphalt paving. Doesn't help for what you're talking about. We'll have to figure out how to address that. But we had in 2017, we had a situation where the road department was tied up on other projects and they weren't available to do paving. So what we did was we bid out the actual paving and we supplied the materials because we could get it without paying the sales tax on it, which was a good savings when you're talking about that much money in materials. But we had a third party come in and actually do the paving and it worked out beautifully. That's what I foresee for the future. The disadvantage to that, the reason we haven't done it in the past, is that 30% match that we have to put on that grant that we get. If we do the paving ourselves, we get to count our expenses. They pay for the road crew, an hourly rate for the equipment, the whole thing against that 30%, as opposed to just paying cash. When we farm it out to a third party, that 30% has to come in the form of a cash payment, which is a little more difficult. But I do believe going forward, that's what we're going to have to do, and that's what I'll propose to the other commissioners. I know exactly what you're talking about with what's been done recently, and we're going to have to do something. I'm just not sure what at this point.
Is that finished, that road right now? Is it- Because it's, I'm sure you've been on it, I'm sure a lot of people have talked about it.
Yeah, it's finished, except for the fact that we need to figure out now how to improve that, what was done there.
So I think, what was it, Johnson Paving did the roads by Ace Hardware and all that stuff, that road looks beautiful.
We had, I forget the name, it was an outfit out of Bartow County in 2017 that came up and did our paving for us, and it was beautiful. That's really good. I think most any of the pavers that's their business can probably do a beautiful job. Asphalt paving is not really the business we're in here as a county. We don't get to do enough of it to really study, and we don't have to stay proficient in it, and we don't really have the equipment we need to do it properly. So, particularly if we can get a T-splosh, then we're able to start doing more wholesale paving. The asphalt portion of it, in my opinion, needs to come from commercial pavers. Like I say, the tar and chip paving, I'll put Gilmer County against anybody for that, but that's not what you're talking about.
So is this tax is going to be voted on? Is that something?
What will have to happen if we have a T-splosh is the Board of Commissioners will have to do a resolution, approve that resolution. And then it will have to go on the ballot, and the people of Gilmer County will have to vote for it and to vote to approve it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephen Purvis, and I live out on Bodie Road. And contrary to, you want to take over a private road, we actually ask a portion of our road, because we take back over control of it, the first 4/10 of it. We have a spring head that comes up, which makes a very large mess, especially as winter comes and it freezes over. So, and Jim Smith has adamantly opposed doing anything with the spring head. He said it's an EPA issue, the county can't touch it. It would require an exponential amount of money to do what we would have to do in that area.
Well, and the county can touch it, but the problem is just what you said, the permits and everything else that we'd have to go through would be a staggering amount.
Could we not overtake, could you not cede that back, the 4/10 of a mile that it is, to the property owners? And then let us improve the road, bid it out and do that individually, and we cede that back to the county? I mean, because if we can, 4/10 of the road takes care of about 11 homes right there. He's got, my neighbor has 16-year-old twins and mine are 15. The amount of cars are about to increase significantly on there. So we'd like to, if we could do something along those lines, and again, I'd love to hire the county to build, you've already said it out of your mouth, you're the best at tar and chipping it. I'd love for you guys to do that, and we reimburse the county for that in some way.
And we were willing to do that except for the cost for the EPD and all the permits, and that was a stumbling block for us.
I get that, but at some point, are you telling me, well, just pound sand because there's really nothing we can do? Because we can't go through, I mean, I understand there's more critical roads that were easier access, not having to go through the EPD, but it seems like there should be some workaround in there. If a lot of the problem with roads is money, and the group there is willing to pay the county to be able to do that, it seems like we should be able to find
If that group is willing to pay the total cost, including the EPD permitting and so forth, I don't have a problem doing it.
If you put it back into the private owners, the 4/10 of that, would we have to go through the EPD for that?
Yes. If, with that spring.
So basically what you're saying, that still, no matter what, because there's a spring head in that road, the permitting associated with EPD is very costly, to my understanding.
Yes.
So no matter what, Bodie Road's probably going to remain unpaid for a very long time.
Well, I don't want to say that.
You don't, I know you don't want to say that, but I don't want to hear it either. But, you know, there's a lot of things I don't want to say or have to hear that we all have to. I mean, you know, take your medicine. I chose to buy property out there. I chose to build there. No one held a gun to my head and made me do that. The road was much more maintained 15 years ago. We agree that. But it still seems like there should be some way of working around that. But if what you're telling me is not, then that doesn't.
I remember at the time there was an estimate for how much extra it was going to cost. I don't remember what that estimate was. It was a pretty staggering amount, and I think when that amount was conveyed, that maybe the interest in y'all paying for it waned a bit.
Well, I think, I never heard what that actual amount was, to be fair with that. I was basically told that it was insurmountable, I guess is.
It's not insurmountable.
But if there is, if there is any way of, if with the property owners around there, could we reroute around that spring head?
James, is that possible?
I've not seen the road. I need to go look at the road, look at the spring head, and I can give you an answer.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll check.
Okay, thank you.
And David, can you check to see if it would be possible to seed that road to Carthage? Okay, all right. Yes, sir.
My name is Tim Miller. I live on Rock Creek Road up at Cherry Log, and I appreciate this opportunity. You explained the gravel road and the paved roads. The one thing I haven't heard about is bridges, and we've got a couple of bridges on that road that need resurfacing. They're served as well, but they're just getting pitted. I'd like to ask about the bridges.
The bridges are the exact same situation as repaving a paved road. It's something that it has to be done. I mean, just like the road has to occasionally be repaved. I haven't mentioned bridges because honestly, the problems that we're facing, there's so much more related to roads than bridges. But certainly bridges would have to be taken care of, now. But now they're taken care of in the same way that everything else is, as much as we can, as soon as we can, which is not necessarily what people like to see. But yeah, bridges are a part of this, just like roads, and they're an expense, just like roads, that has to be met. So if that would be one more good reason why something like a T-Splosh would be necessary, because right now, as long as we feel the bridges are safe, there's not much we can do financially in terms of, yeah, it's safe, but it's rough, we need to go resurface it. And while we're on the topic of bridges, there is one that I would like to bring up. Y'all may have heard of Lower Cartacate Road Bridge. Every other year, DOT sends people out and does a safety check on every one of our bridges. Usually the worst thing that happens is they will send us a letter and say you have to post this bridge for a lower weight limit. They went out to Lower Cartacate Road Bridge and actually put a diver in the water down there. There are two structures going down into the water, support structures. The diver went down and saw that at some point when we've got all these gargantuan rains and the rivers are running 200 miles an hour, the bottom 2 or 3 feet of one of those structures washed away. So it's just hanging in the river. It's not actually touching anything. The diver came back up, called the road department, and said, close it now, not one more vehicle goes across this bridge. We called an engineering firm to come out and give us an idea. They told us it cost about $800,000 to repair the bridge, but we still have a 50-year-old bridge that the upper part of it was in bad shape. Or, for about $1.2 million, we could build a new bridge. Everything's $1.2 million. So the logical thing was, instead of paying $800,000 to fix the bridge, you pay like $1.2 million to replace it. The only problem was we didn't have $1.2 million to do it. I wrote a letter to DOT asking them, they had just come out with a new program to bridge replacement program. And they had offered to put one of our bridges on it, a small wooden bridge on another lane. I asked them if they would take that one off and put Lower Cartacay on instead. Got a no on that. So I went to our representatives, asked for a little help. And before too much longer, I got a letter from DOT, so we decided to put Lower Cartacay Road Bridge on the bridge replacement program. Sometimes it does have to have the Speaker of the House be the representative. Problem was they put it on the bottom. It was the 51st bridge to be replaced. And it takes years to replace a bridge. So I wrote them and said, can we move this up to the top? No. So I went back and said, can we get some help on this? Before too long, I got a letter from DOT, so we decided we're going to move this bridge up to the top. But the DOT had a whole different idea of the bridge than we did. Theirs is probably a whole lot more accurate. They're going to have to build a spanning bridge. They can't put any columns going down to the river because we have the Golden Line Darter. So we can't do that. Their estimate for what they plan to spend on replacing that bridge was $2.5 million. They said that the conditions of this program are such that the only thing the county is responsible for is 1/2 of the cost of any additional rights of way that they have to get. They had estimated that to be $100,000 and sent us an invoice for $50,000. We couldn't wait to pay it. I mean, we wanted to make sure nothing messed this deal up. So there is a current project that DOT has to replace Lower Cartacay Road Bridge. Doesn't seem like it because it's been 2 or 3 years now. They're going through their bridge replacement projects on that. Engineering, right-of-way, checking. I got a letter the other day checking to make sure that there were no historical artifacts around the whole thing that they go through. Their projection for an actual construction on the bridge is their fiscal 2021, which starts June of 20. A lot of people are upset that it's taken this long to get that bridge replaced. But it really does take, you don't replace a bridge with a spanning bridge in just a few months. The other thing is, it's costing us $50,000 instead of $2.5 million. So that's why we're waiting on them to replace that bridge. And I should have mentioned that before. It has nothing to do with what you're talking about, except that it reminded me that, I want to get that information out to people. So, but to your point, yes, bridges are part of the road system that need to be maintained just the way the road system.
Okay, 2 quick questions, Bob. But one is there a place we can go to see the priority of the bridges that are going to be worked on? And when is it on the website somewhere? Or whatever?
I believe there is a website that you can go to, a DOT website.
But it's the Georgia DOT, not the county.
Right.
Okay, I'll find it.
Right.
The second is some of the neighbors were asking, the school bus all of a sudden, and maybe you can't answer this, I don't know. But all of a sudden the school bus stopped running up through there and they have to take the kids down to the church at 515, Highway 515. Is that related at all, or is that some other issue that we don't need to go into tonight, and I'll just tell them to call the Board of Education or what?
Which road was it again?
Rock Creek.
Yeah. I had a call, there was a similar situation today on a totally different road. I'm not familiar with that. That would be a Board of Education decision.
All right.
Why they decided it, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Janice Melvin, and I live in the Rogers Creek subdivision, in the western part of the county, off of Highway 282, Pleasant Gap, and Rogers Creek Road. We have approximately 296 acres, or lots, in our subdivision. I've been out there I've owned the property for about 30 years. And I don't know exactly how many people that we have living out there full-time. We have a lot of people that own lots they've never done anything to. We have people that have lived there since day one. And we have people moving in and out all the time. In order to get to our subdivision, the school buses travel out there every day to pick up the children, take them back and forth to school. And also any of the residents, including myself, that work, we have to go back and forth every day. And my discussion is about 3 of your categories: the striping of the roads, the potholes on paved roads, and the potholes on the gravel roads. From Highway 282, Pleasant Gap Circle, Pleasant Gap Road, Rogers Creek Road, that are paved roads. And if you take Pleasant Gap Circle all the way around from 282 on one end to 282 on the other end, I think you're looking at about 7 or 8 miles that need striping. The potholes at this time have all been repaired. I haven't hit one lately, so I haven't found one. So the potholes are fine. And I know you've had some calls from other residents in the subdivision that have called about the gravel road on Rogers Creek Road, wanting it graded. There's approximately 2.5 to 3 miles of gravel road from Rogers Creek and Seth Hyatt all the way back in to where it dead ends into Meadowbrook that you all maintain. I don't think any of the other residents that live out there are here, and that's why I got up to say something. I guess the thing that's most pressing right now to the residents out there is the gravel road. Over the years, we've had a lot of problems in the subdivision, with our subdivision roads. But right now, the POA is working feverishly and have residents that are volunteering their time to help maintain all the roads in the subdivision to get them to the point to where the residents will be satisfied with their roads without trying to get the county to take them over.
Yes, ma'am.
So, that's really all I have to say. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, my name is Rhonda Weiss, and I'm not, so, even though my gravel road stinks, that's not what my question's gonna be. I am very much in support of the T-Splost, with a caveat. What is the strategy to determine, and prioritization, to determine what roads get done when and how?
If we can get a T-Splost, what we will have to do is get with the road department and sit down, and there will be, and I'm giving you this off the top of my head now,
Fair
because,
enough.
this whole thing
I'm a
is
strategy
coming pretty
person.
quickly here. I would imagine that the criteria would be the roads that are most used, and then among that, the roads that are in the worst shape. And that's how we would want to start prioritizing it. Once we get the most heavily used roads, the worst of the heavily used roads, and then go back and get the rest of the heavily used roads after we get the worst conditions. Once we get that done, then we can use that same priority to try to determine what is done with the rest of them.
And related to the heavily used roads, I would request that there's consideration for roads that have semi-trucks going on.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we know, even though we might not have the frequency of traffic with those, we have the wear and tear that's very significant. And we have a lot of chicken farms.
Yeah. And by heavily used, that kind of traffic certainly would qualify as heavily used. We do have problems with big trucks tearing up the roads. There's not a lot we've been able to do about it. We have that problem even with paved roads, but it's a lot better situation with paved roads than it is, of course, with the dirt road, because those just get torn up so easily. But yeah, that would be, I would think, a primary consideration.
And then from a desired end game and desired outcome is that the almost 200 miles of gravel roads would have some sort of tar, asphalt versus gravel.
My own vision of that is that virtually all of those roads, and again, there are people that have told me we don't want to go to pave, so it won't be all of them. Well, their concern is, they say if you pave it, people are going to speed them. The traffic's going to be much faster. But that's going to be a very minute portion. My particular vision is that those roads will be paved with tar and chip. I don't see spending almost double for asphalt paving, and then having the increased cost of maintaining asphalt paving. When I'm a big fan of tar and chip. It's a good hard surface, half the cost of asphalt. So what I would like to see for all of the currently unpaved roads would be that they're paved with tar and chip.
Okay. And that's fair. I think, especially like my particular road is only a half a mile. Tar and chip would be perfect for that setting.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Plus, we do tar and chip really well. We should.
I've heard that. I've heard rumors about that.
Did I mention that?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Yes, sir.
My name is Ed Silke. I live on Cougar Lane. I'm not into politics. I don't know who I'm talking to. What is your name, sir?
Charlie Paris.
I know the name. Okay, I didn't know the man. It appears to me, after listening this today, I don't think you have a choice but to go forward with this T-slot thing. I don't know if you're the man that has to initiate things, but somebody ought to.
Well, yeah, we're the three of us would have to initiate it. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'll probably be taking some of my post commissioners by surprise with this. This is something that's just been very quickly coming, and I'm not allowed to talk to these folks unless we're in an official meeting like this.
I see.
So, I'm hopeful that they'll be supportive of a T-Splosh, but we'll see.
Well, to do some of the things that you need to do, I don't think there's any other choice, practical choice.
I
We're all
agree.
gonna have to pay.
Yes, sir.
It's gonna cost all of us. But I certainly hope that you people will take the initiative and get something going on it.
Thank you.
Cougar Lane is a half-mile stretch. There's 13 families living on that now.
I'm very familiar with it.
I have the Wildlife Sanctuary in the end, and I have my business of Tooling Unlimited. We've been dealing with the road conditions. The county has taken it over about 5 years ago. Before that, I took care of it. It kept me pretty broke, but anyway, they have done a lot and helped me. But they don't have sufficient gravel on it, and you guys did the grading of it. And 2 days later, we're back to the mess.
And
So,
that's the problem we see with the gravel roads.
yeah. So hard surfacing that thing of some sort is pretty major.
Yeah.
But the fact that there are 13 families and a couple of businesses seem like that ought to, on a short distance, ought to carry some weight to get service on that thing. Now, again, when the guys come out to grade the thing, having not enough gravel on it, they cut the top of your off, fills in the hollow, and 2 days later, boys, we're back to the washboard.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna keep this up, we're gonna have to put, enough gravel on it so the guy that does the grading can do the job like it should be done. And I'm not complaining, I'm just saying that we're doing a lot of work, you guys are, and it can't be done sufficient because everybody's got to work with it.
I know exactly what you're talking about the amount of gravel. We, a couple of years ago, went to a completely different system for spreading the gravel. We have actually a gravel truck that does that. And the reason for that is it spreads it evenly, but it spreads it thinly.
Yeah.
And we realize we're spreading it thinly right now. It's what we have to do to have gravel to put everywhere.
Just to get something on it. I understand. But anyhow, I don't know, how can I get on some kind of a list where this particular half mile could be looked at? I mean, do we have to have everybody sign a petition or something, or what do we do?
No, the first order of business will be, we would just have to get the T-Splosh so that we can do it.
You gotta get the money.
We gotta get the money. Once that happens, I'm anticipating a flood of calls and emails. And what I would say at that point is, email will be your best friend.
Well, Charlie, I'm glad I'm not sitting in your shoes with all these people. I'm only grown. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
While you're coming up, I will also kind of pipe in on the T-Splosh. As a fairly newly elected commissioner, not quite as new as two down from me, but I have asked, because I know you see this in the budget, you see it's an issue, you know we don't have the money, and I've asked my other county commissioners that are in classes with me and that I go to conferences with, what are you guys doing, what are you guys doing? And constantly, especially some of the counties, well, it's the bigger counties too, but some of our smaller counties in our same situation have done this T-Splosh, and it's helped them tremendously. I'm also in favor of it because it's a shared expense, it's a shared tax, if you will. We heavily rely and love and appreciate all of our visitors that come to Gilmer County, but this would help share that cost with them a little bit. They use our roads, so when they spend money here, then those tax dollars would go towards this as well. So I think it is a good answer to get towards the end of, to reach this goal, but so just to let you know.
That's what I was sitting there thinking, is the tourists get to pay too, guys. We don't have to pay for all of it. That's what the wonderful thing about it.
I also was informed by Hubert here just a few minutes ago that the sales tax doesn't apply to groceries either, so
No, but it does apply to liquor, right?
I don't know.
Appalachian Beverage does a fantastic business, guys, because it's frying fan, and so there's a lot of money there, right there. So that's awesome. And I'm super excited to hear that you're doing something with the Carter Cape Bridge. I live a half a mile from it, on a horrible half-mile stretch of gravel road, which, just like the other gentleman said, nobody yanked my arm when I bought that house. I wanted to live in the mountains back in the woods. And Makalola uses me as a power pole, so I lose my power every time I turn around. But there's lots of wonderful things about it too.
Yeah.
But there's a gentleman sitting back there who is 85 years old. I'm 75. All of our neighbors are senior citizens. For Howard, Mr. Kelly, to be out there in a downpour, putting in 2 cement bags it took to fill the hole. And he and I were yesterday out there cutting down a tree with my battery-operated chainsaw. We really need some attention, and I understand we're not a county road. It's Rusty Lady Lane. It's a half mile. And there's only 6 houses on it, and there's a few of us that aren't permanent, they use them as cottages and such. But it would tremendously improve the value of our homes. It's only 1 car wide. I, every day, have to drive a great big 2500 Chevrolet diesel and a 24-foot horse trailer in and out of there. And I feel like I deserve an award, or maybe a belt buckle, for maneuvering through the trees and such. But I understand your dilemma, and I'm all for your cheese blast.
Thank you.
And I gave you a copy of what Mr. Kelly put together,
Yes, ma'am.
and all of the residents of our little area signed it and are in agreement with it. However, we all live on Social Security. We couldn't all get together and do anything.
Right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sandy Stevenson.
Good evening, panel. My name is John Schmidt. I also live in the Carter's Lake Estate section down in the southwest corner of the county, but we all know our problems. We all know that we're going to be at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the list for this county situation because we're all on private roads. But my first question is, who maintains state roads 52, 136, 282, and 382, and 515?
The Georgia Department of Transportation.
So is that the mileage of those roads, is that in our 500 miles that you're talking about?
It is not. No.
It is not.
No.
And that answers that one. Would there be able to get any cooperation from both Pickens County and or Fannin County to try and work together? If they may be slow 1 week, maybe we can combine, have them come to the one part of the county and like vice versa, spread it out. I know you said we're at our wits' end, short on manpower, worse on equipment. We're building it up, trying to build it up. But if we can combine forces for a short period of time, utilize the manpower of everybody on a couple of southern roads or northern roads or in between, would that help? Is that an option? Or first of all, is that even an option to go to the other counties?
Could we legally do that, David?
You can enter into a mutual agreement with respect to road maintenance, but practically speaking, I don't see any two or any county sharing some approach on that unless it was a road that was on the boundary. Because of the fact, in your situation is that you certainly, if you're underwhelmed and short of manpower, of course, not have the ability to commit back or reciprocate with Pickens or Fannin. So that's going to be jurisdictionally limited. Other than in those rare occasions where the road actually straddles the county line in most occasions. And in those situations, an agreement can be formalized and entered into between the two counties, but
Not on an as needed, as things come up basis.
I don't see it. Because, I mean, their citizens are going to expect their crew to respond to them in a timely manner. And if they're down here working in Gilmer on something, that's just not going to sit well.
I do know that they're facing pretty much the same situation we are, but not as severely. I forget whether it's Pickens or Fannin. One of them's got pretty much all their roads paved.
Pickens has had a major paving. I just assumed
Yeah.
certain people were up for reelection.
Well, I will say this, I'm not up for reelection in this next cycle, but if I was, I wouldn't have a penny to try to bribe you with the road.
I didn't mean to be negative, I was just, and the last thing is, a couple of years ago, and we still may have it on the books, Gilmer County utilized for litter pickup some of the people in the jails.
We still do that.
We still do that?
Yes, sir.
Is there an option to expand any of that with cutting the grasses? Or
I don't-
utilizing them in any other way
Yeah.
besides just litter?
There could be, I'd have to look into that. The problem with using them to cut the grass is, our problem there is not necessarily manpower, it's that we only have two of these $200,000 mowers. You know, if we were able to get enough manpower from the jail to operate a couple more, we'd still have to go out and buy them, and we don't have the money to do that. As for other things, I guess your imagination would be pretty much the only limit to it. I know that it would have to be economically feasible. In order to have the prisoners out picking up trash on the side of the road, what the county had to do was to fund an additional deputy. Because they didn't have somebody that they could just send out with them to watch them when they do this. So it does cost us a little over $40,000 a year to have the prisoners do that. It's worth it though. They pick up a ton of trash. I mean, literally tons of trash. And for some reason, people just love seeing the prisoners out working. So it, you know,
It's a win-win.
It is, absolutely. If there were some other application for it, we could certainly look at it.
And my last question would be, I just went brain dead. Oh,
Don't you love when that happens?
you have stated, and everybody's put in their point of view, and I understand it, and I'm in favor for it as well, option number 3. When could be the first time we, as citizens of the county, could see it to vote on it?
Right now, what I'm trying to do is to be able to get this on the May ballot.
So possibly by early
By-
2020.
Yes. Now, if it's on the May ballot and if it's approved, I've got to think about this. I think the first day of the quarter following the month it's approved is when the revenue would start coming in from it. And it would take a few months to build this up to the point that we could start doing some serious things with it. Now, I've had it recommended to me that if this passes, that we go ahead and get a bond and do it all at once and then pay for it with the T-Splosh, but I'm not real big on doing that. I would kind of rather just let things sit for 4 or 5 months and let some money build up and then do it as it comes in.
So, I don't have a problem with that. I appreciate your answers. I just, people, a lot of the time, we expect things to happen overnight, so it doesn't happen overnight.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that is put forth for the idea of issuing some bonds and getting some money up front that will be paid for by the T-Splosh, because people could see immediate results from it at that point. Otherwise, there is a tendency that people could say, well, we voted it in and it's been 4 months or 6 months, you know, when they're gonna do something. So it's something to consider as to which way we do it.
Thank you all very much. As I walk back to my seat, could you say 2 cents about the pool that's coming up?
Yes, sir. We have, yeah. That's right. We advertise this as being roads only, so unfortunately I can't, but if you want, after the meeting's over, I'll be happy to give you all the information you can have.
Or tomorrow night.
Or tomorrow night, we have our,
I just tried to slide that in, that's all.
oh, I love talking about food. Drive me crazy.
Clarify on that T-Splosh, it does count for groceries, so I did want to clarify. Just
Oh, does it?
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
And it does this plus,
Yes. And what doesn't is the,
regular sales tax.
Georgia groceries are not subject to the state's 4% sales tax, but the SPLOST and T-Splosh are all.
And you couldn't tell me that privately without everybody knowing?
I thought since we announced it, that doesn't
No,
count
you're-
for groceries,
No,
that we should
I
clarify.
appreciate that. I was wrong. Doesn't happen often, but I was wrong.
Gotta have a woman behind you.
That's who usually corrects me. So,
Usually
yes,
that's
ma'am.
I'm back again.
Yes, ma'am.
I've had a few thoughts while listening to everyone. I don't know if it's still possible or even possible for a county. But years ago, when I worked for a certain business, there were a number of different kinds of rural enrichment grants and things that could be applied for assistance with like private dirt roads. I don't know if that is still something that can be done or looked into or searched for, if it already has been. And I know there used to be other different programs and funds available for smaller counties to apply for assistance with these types of issues. Although I do agree a T-SPLOST is a good move for the county overall. Those are some of the thoughts that came across.
Yeah.
Another thing that, as I was sitting there thinking about my situation and listening to everyone else's situation, something that's different, I think, between some of the private roads that have been discussed tonight and mine is I bought my home in 2008, and when I purchased it, I did not know that the county was not maintaining the road. After I got moved in and settled, I called the road, or the county road department to find out, hey, when are you guys coming out to fix the road? And they came out, and they were looking at it, and they said, oh yeah, you guys really need a couple loads of gravel and some grading done. We'll get it set up in a couple of days. And then a couple of days later, it's like, oh no, we don't own that road.
Yeah.
We don't take care of that road. And I'm like, okay. But we have county water.
Mhm.
So, you know, the worse that this road gets, eventually it's going to damage those county water lines. And then it is going to be a county problem.
Well,
That might
yes and
need to
no.
be looked at to do something about sooner than at the end of the list, just to save the county money in the long run when such a problem might occur.
We
Just
have
food for
the
thought.
Gilmer LJ Water and Sewer Authority. All of the county water and sewer is totally separate from the county government. We have nothing to do with it.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
I did not know that.
It's just set up as an authority and they're their own entity.
Okay.
Not all counties are that way, but that's
I
our.
thought ours was a part of the county. Has that changed recently in the last few years?
It's been that way as long as I can remember.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I stand corrected. But still, it is going to be a problem.
Yes, ma'am,
eventually.
I agree with that.
It is
but-
going to be a problem eventually.
Yes, ma'am.
All What steps would a resident take to look into how that road is? Because I remember, and I have to go back and verify for myself, but I don't believe my property lines extend into the road, as you initially explained to me. So where would I go exactly to start searching and looking into that myself?
Well, you should be able to look at the plat for your property and see on that, whether it ends at the road or it goes into the
Yeah,
road.
my plat, it ends at the road, all of them do. All the lots out there are segregated and the road goes.
Well, normally what happens is they go to the center line. I don't guess all of them do, but we have them in
There,
there.
on our plat, there is a distinct area set aside for the road.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, again, the subdivision plat would hopefully reveal, and the county's never officially accepted the roads into the county inventory, then it's either vested with the developer, which would be the person that initially created the subdivision, or with a homeowner association. Doesn't sound like you're.
We don't have a homeowner
Doesn't sound like you don't have a homeowner association, so it may
And
be
it's-
vested in somebody privately.
It's phase 4 of the Yukon Forest, and the other 3 phases have been taken into by the county.
Yeah.
So it's never made any sense to me why our road has just been abandoned.
But it's not necessarily abandoned, because the county never potentially, if the county didn't own it to begin with, it's one of those things, the county never exercised any ownership, so the county never abandoned it, okay?
Well, I mean, not the county abandoned it, it's just,
Right. But it's just one of those things that there's been some confusion perhaps as to who has ownership of the road and who has responsibility and maintenance of the road. But the first place to turn would be the clerk's office and looking into the subdivision plat. And then if that doesn't answer the questions that you have, you may want to seek the assistance of a title attorney or a real estate attorney to help you. And maybe the attorney that closed the transaction for you would help you answer some of those questions when you purchase the property. Because there's got to be a recorded easement of some sort to have legal access to the property, especially when you bury it further back in off the road like that to begin with.
okay. All right, thank you again.
Thank you, ma'am. What I would like to do at this point, at least I think I would, I may regret it. For those who wouldn't mind sharing an opinion, would you mind just with a show of hands saying who here would favor the T-Splosh? Thank you. And any that would oppose it? Okay, thank you.
Maybe
Now-
one.
You don't think we vote?
How about you guys, leadership? What do we got there?
I can tell you that I'm for it only because I don't see another solution. Can't speak for these guys.
Same, I am for the T-Splosh. I think it's our,
Who's opposed up there?
I'm sorry?
Who's opposed up there?
I don't know.
I can't vote yet, won't be sworn in until tomorrow.
But you could give your opinion.
You're-
I'm
Unofficial.
here to hear what everybody has to say.
So you can vote on Saturday?
Unfortunately,
Yes.
I won't be here Saturday, I'm trying to get.
Okay. I'm going to push this just a tad bit further. If we have a T-Splosh, there's 2 ways we can do this. We can say, okay, we're just kind of going to sit back for 4 or 5 months or whatever and let some money come in until we get enough build up that we can start doing things. Or we can sell some bonds to raise money that we can start doing stuff right away with the T-Splosh paying for the bonds. Who here would favor the bonds? Okay, that answers my question. Yeah, and I understand and agree because this last time we did. Yes, sir.
Just one thing, when, and if we can get this on the May ballot, please, please, please have someone write the proposal in English, in understandable
In
English,
non-attorney language?
non-attorney language.
Is that possible then?
If that screws up more
Yeah.
ballot stuff, I think, than anything else.
Yes, sir.
Plain English. Thank you.
He said to
What,
ask.
he was saying that if we get this on the ballot, could we put it in there in plain English and not attorney talk? Okay.
Amen.
All right, is there anybody else that would like to comment? I gotta tell you, I got scared to death just a minute ago. I looked up the clock, said 8:45. Obviously, nobody has reset that thing yet. So,
Nope.
all right.
It's not in the budget.
It's not in the budget. Okay, well,
Right on.
that being the case, then I would make a motion that the meeting be adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, folks. We appreciate so much y'all coming.
Thank you.